let me X out of that, kill all the extra stuff. Hey, here we are, CNM Ep 114. Battling
Booyah.
Burnout. We got Michael Anderle here, Craig Martelle coming to you live from the subarctic where it's dark, and it'll be dark all day. Driving is a pain in the ass because the sun rises on the southern horizon and sets on the southern horizon and stays on the southern horizon, so you're driving right into it if I go into town. Anyway, here we are. Where are you coming to us from, Michael?
I am coming from Henderson. Still, surprisingly, things haven't changed much off the golf course where the sun is peeking over the houses and it is splashing a bright color on the trees above me. And I'm sure if the birds could, they would sing. But we basically have the little bitty guys that walk across, partridges. They really don't sing much at all.
Yeah. I mean, you have such a beautiful view from your back porch there with the hot tub and the
That's because you're cheating. You've been here.
man. Oh yeah. Well, and as a golfer, I would just sit there, and as I did at your house, just sit there and watch the golfers and critique their swings like little bitches.
You're Saturday or Sunday armchair quarterbacking. That's not how you throw a bomb, you Pastorini. What the hell are you thinking?
Nice slice, buddy.
Yes. Number 7 used to be fun until that guy with that asshole off to the right.
Oh my God! So grumpy old guys watching golfers. That's us. So here we are today, episode 114. We're going to talk about battling burnouts. I don't know why Michael brought this up, but hey, since weed is going to be legal nationwide,
I did not bring weed up. Let's clarify this immediately.
Burnouts, people who
burnouts could also be getting in your sports car and
torch the doobie. Well, yeah.
Okay. We're obviously different generations here.
We'll fight them too. You're doing wheelies out in the street. We're going to fight you. We're going to fight people banging the bong and rocking the ganj, torching the weed.
Yeah, it was kind of annoying here.
Marijuana. So how are we going to start? Do we bring guns to burnout fights, or what do we do?
You know what? I just moved because whenever they legalized weed and everything here in California, here in Nevada, we lived over on the Strip, and it was a little bit annoying because the law is that you're allowed to do it inside your own personal property, right? That's what the law is. Not you can do it on the Strip or you can do it inside it. That's not the law. But they would still, we lived at the Aria and everything, or next door to the Aria, if you will, but in that little cave of concrete that burned everyone up. And they, people would be smoking outside the door. So you go out of your condo and you walk 100 yards and you're like, oh man. So it's not by laws. The way I did it was I moved.
Yeah, weed is legal up here in Alaska, but we're not going to battle those burnouts. We're going to battle the burnout, the authors getting tired and depressed and bumming out about burning out, doing too much work, and you're frying yourself. So let us know what your thoughts, Michael.
I wanted to remind us that burnout isn't always necessarily just quantity of words on a page and you burn out, which is the common way that we say it. But right now, it's like up in Alaska, it's freaking dark. I mean, just the change of the seasons can get you a general melee. A loved one passed away, and now it's that same kind of stuff that you have to go through and battle. And one, that there is another side. There is hope on the other side. And there's just a lot of different ways to look at it and see what you can do, but just recognize that I'm pretty unaware of anyone who's been in it for enough time in the indie sphere, where the indie sphere is a lot harder than the trad sphere, typically speaking, from the sheer quantity of material you put out. We had a common refrain that we say to people here at LMBPN when they join us and they're very gung-ho. It's like, look out for book number 4. I don't know what it is about between books 4 and 5, but that is when it pretty much kills everyone. And it's like, just make plans that 5 is just don't, and they don't listen. Book 1, here it is. Book 2, here it is. Book 3, it's amazing. Book 4, that was a little rough. Book 5, I can't seem to get it out.
Yeah, it's at least with LMBPN. The 4 books you're already paying out by that point because it's a month in between. With my trad pub, it was I signed the contract and for 3 books, and I published the first book, and they didn't edit it, and then I published the second book, and they're like, oh, it's going to be edited 2 months down the road. And then I published, I sent them the completed third book, and they still hadn't published the first. And I'm like, holy crap, what revenue? It's 3 months, so I'm not going to get paid for a year. So it was very, very difficult to write that fourth book without ever having seen a penny of any of that money yet. And even though I got a nice report at the end of the quarter, oh man, sales are looking good. Look at this bestseller tag, money. So yeah.
But you bring up an interesting point, because on the trad side, you received no money. A lot of times on our side, the really hungry writers were writing to get out of being hungry, right? Here was an opportunity that they're going to make something, because some of them have already published their own indie stuff and it didn't go anywhere. So if they made $1.97, so that's not going to happen when they were with us. They're going to receive more than $1.97. So between books 4 and 5, they've started to receive money, and all of a sudden that I need to make it, I need to eat, I need to whatever is lessened. And so, it's almost a little bit of the opposite. It's kind of like, I'm going to enjoy myself for a while. And we're like, it's going to die if you don't produce.
Yeah. Well, but it's also important to note that you have to enjoy your success at some point. Not very few people are able to stay hungry consistently and long term. Like, I'm 58 years old and I've done it my whole life. I've stayed hungry. I'm just ridiculously driven. And that's one thing when you brought me on board and you said, hey, let's look at expanding further. And I said, hey, here's the 3 criteria. You have to be able to produce. You have to be fanatically driven. And that's I put that in as like the number 2 criteria, because it's not like, well, I think I can. If you say I think I can, you're already out. It's not. You have to know you can. You have to be committed to delivering, and it's not just delivering to you. It's delivering to yourself, because you don't say you must produce within a month. It's like, what can you do? You ask that first off. It's like, hey, it takes me 3 months for that first book, and then 2 months for the second book, then it's like, okay, we'll just gauge our publication schedule off that. Yeah. It's not that if you can't do a book a month, I'm not going to drive you to do a book a month. It's you have to work within your own capabilities. And I think some people think, oh my God, I'm in with Michael Anderle, I have to do this, and they drive themselves into the ground because they were ill prepared for that kind of burden.
We've matured. Yeah, we've matured on our side to recognize that more, because you don't see that as an individual, at least as myself. I mean, you're one of the very first individuals, and certainly the first that probably did it quite as hard. Justin Sloan was there with us at that time. We had one other individual, but you were the one that was, and you were fanatically driven. So what am I going to base anything? Justin Sloan is fanatically driven. I was surrounded by people like me, so I had no experience with individuals and just different personalities. And it's neither, I'm not judging anything based on that. I'm merely stating this is how it was. So it took me a while to recognize the different personalities and to gain the wisdom of how to help them be themselves and be successful at the same time. That success within your own capabilities.
And I think that's what comes to the burnout question is, what are you capable of doing yourself? And understand, as an indie, you don't get to just write stories, because there's some people perfectly happy jamming stories all day long. And a lot of them work as ghostwriters. They write some of their own stories. They ghostwrite. The benefits of ghostwriting is you get paid now. Here, write the story. You get paid by word, unless you have a bad client that stiffs you. But that's not the norm. The norm is, hey, here's your words. Hey, here's your money. And
it happens enough. Apparently,
it's unfortunate. It should not, because as a business, but there's some people who write in a variation where they get a little work for hire as well as part of the royalties in order to get money now and money later. And those are things that help reduce some of the financial burden. And understand there's 3 elements of a person's well-being: emotional well-being, a financial well-being, and there's also that safety for your family. So the personal and the emotional I should say the emotional well-being is about you being comfortable in your skin and not having to worry all the time about things that are out of your control, things that are in your control, that are going out of control. And, and part of that is knowing that, hey, I'll sit down, I'll get my 2,500 words. It'll be a great day. We'll move on. And by the end of the month, I have a book, and we'll take it from there. So but if you've never written 2,500 in a day before, and all of a sudden you're committing to do that for every single day of a year, you're going to have problems. When I committed to Michael, I said, I can give you a book in 3 weeks. And you're like, whoa, hang on there, big husky. Let's do it in a month.
Let's clarify, I did not say big husky. That's Craig.
I'm paraphrasing. He meant
you paraphrase the crap out of my stuff. You paraphrase. Just if it comes from Craig saying Mike said, don't necessarily believe
it.
No, do not.
But that's, you were like, hang on, don't, and you're warning me then, don't burn out. But I still delivered the books at 3 weeks, and because I had such fun writing them. And that's the one thing I always went back to, that core thing of, I just really enjoy telling these stories. And that's what I'm doing nowadays. I still write, and I love telling the stories. So shaping those seeds and moving forward. So how do I avoid burnout? I write, because it's all of the other stuff that is the burden.
Am I on your left side, your right side?
You are on my screen. I'm looking. You're to my right. So yeah, you're pointing at me now.
Okay, so Facebook user, that's Big Husky, but that's not my name for him. That's his name for himself. You're just catching up that the lady, they're talking Big Husky over here.
That's what Michael calls me.
That's not. Damn it, Martelle. Stop it. So additional things that you were talking about related to burnout and some of the opportunities that were there. First, do recognize it in yourself and find out whether or not the burnout is you don't have a story. Like, I know that one of the first times that I had what I considered the classic symptoms of burnout, they're all multiple were in the same time. One, I had just hit like 50 grand in a month, and I'm like, why am I writing? I mean, that was way beyond what I needed to personally. For what reason am I driving myself? I had to go through that. Consequently, also, I was on in between books, somewhere in 6 to the 8 frame, and I'm like, I'm not sure what happens now. And so I was having a real headache going, what am I going to write? I wasn't interested in it. It was one of the first times that I ripped apart a bunch of beats and took out 5,000 words, which was a world record for me to ever not use words. I think I used them later. But it really was story. It wasn't until I could get my head around a story I was excited about, which is how it ties right back into what you were saying, Greg. When the story became exciting, my issues went away for the most part. It was still like, oh my God, I had a lot of typing to do. But also, you and I have spoken about at length over the last 3 years, when are we going to bow out, right? Or at least I brought this up. I had the question going, I'm looking at history, knowing that history tends to repeat itself. And I was noticing that a lot of the people in the indie sphere who gained rapid ascension of acknowledgement and helped people, that was one of the core, and they helped a lot of people, were gone in 36 months.
Yeah.
Just over, and then you almost saw waves of the first wave of people who did it, followed by a second. We were like wave 3, I think, at that time, you and I. And so for us to be sitting here 5 years later, still aggressively moving, the question is, how did we accomplish it? It could have been, I can tell you, mine was a hell of a lot of support.
Yeah.
I invested early in taking my revenue and finding someone to help me do the things that I wasn't good at.
And when you, I use the term battling burnout, but one thing Michael said is, I really want to talk about creating that framework and that infrastructure to do the things that I get the least value from. Even though marketing, you make money from that, but it's still for your time. What gives you the greatest payback on your time, and what can other people do that you don't have to do? And this is one thing, you broke those down and built your company up from that initial plateau of your book selling well to now your company sells well. And that was the thing I do. I have a great support team surrounding me to do graphics, to help with ads, to edit, to my beta readers. My insider team is invaluable because they are there for me to bounce an idea off, to shoot stuff back to me, to do mid progress reviews on books, so I can just talk about stories. And although I may have lost some of the, what do you say, artistic, the idea lose some of that, but all I have to do is talk to the fans. Hey guys, here, I'm thinking of this for the next judge, jury, and executioner story. What kind of subplots do you think could come into play? And then they get all these ideas, and the people are excited. And when your fans are excited, it's easy for you to be excited and say, okay, yeah, let me go jam this. Let me put that side plot in, this side plot. Here we go. We're running.
Yeah.
So the creative well, yeah, that's it. The creative well. Not COVID.
Yeah. I heard that. No big husky. That's not it. But so the support, but we're also saying, for the individual that asked it, how do we write when we're burned out? Part of it is, I had a bunch of fans threatening to get a big vat of boiling Pepsi and rubber chickens and throw my ass into it. And so there was that. I didn't want to let down the fans, but that's my personality. Some people are like, fans can sit on it until I'm ready. But I looked around and said, what is it that can help drive me through what I consider this painful time? And I already had a work ethic. And I really wanted success because I really had a lot of non-success for the last 30 years of my life. I had been successful getting a job, but I wanted my own company. So that helped it as well. And so, yes, it is wild how amazing what the concepts we preach apply to any small business, because there's correlations and within anything you're trying to accomplish. It doesn't matter if it's writing a book or climbing a mountain or building a auto parts business. You still need to have drive. You still need to have a reason to get up in the morning and go do this. And so those are some of the things that we accomplished. And I wanted to backtrack just a little bit, Craig, because one of the first things I remember that you did, and I was searching everybody. It's like, what is everybody doing cool that's different? And you had put an editor on retainer. I'm like, oh, that is fantastic. So I had to go out and do something like it.
Yep. I prepaid 100,000 words of editing for every month. So yeah, that was because I was given that many. Hey, here you go. And I did that for, almost 3 years.
Yes, that was so that you had done that. I had reached out and I had snagged Steve Campbell, who was the one running the Author Biz podcast, and I could tell by listening to the podcast, and I loved him because he's not only a great individual from asking the questions and being a host and pulling a fascinating conversation out of people, but he would occasionally post this ad, almost like he was ashamed of doing it. It's kind of like, I got this podcast. At the very end, it's like, hey, look, if you're looking to do this. Now, he was doing more from a website type of offer. And I knew how I had done websites. I know they're a pain in the butt. I know that the people who want their websites done are a pain in the butt people to deal with. But I liked Steve. And I had spoken to him and been interviewed a couple of times. So I reached out to him. And, I made that Steve Jobs sort of thing, where do you want to, Steve Jobs is known really well to say, hey, do you want to be selling sugared water for the rest of your life, related to Pepsi? And then, regretted hiring that man for the rest of his life. But I reached out to Steve and I was like, hey, can you give me some idea what you're trying to do and accomplish? Because you're effectively retired, but you're still looking to get some work. And I'm like, do you, my phrase of instead of sugared water is like, do you want 20 or 30 or 40 annoying customers you have to keep chasing around, or do you just want one who's going to treat you well and pay you fast and not be a burden? So I got 2 out of 3. But anyway, that's how the original time of me being able to hire Steve Campbell on and took over operations, because I'm an idea guy. I'm a creative. That's where my strength lies. Steve is that puzzle guy. He's the one who likes to take all the pieces, figure out the puzzle, put it together, get it running effectively, put the people in place, and go to the next puzzle. That doesn't appeal to me at all.
Yeah.
And so that's how we were able to work well.
Well, and Steve manages that the bigger element of bringing all of those pieces together for each of the projects, which a book is a project, and now he has a team that helps manage all of that as well. And you set the course, you're steering the ship, you're throwing out fireworks every now and then, and it keeps going forward. But these are things that keep you from burning out by because you're looking at, hey, I have to write beats, I have to tell a story, I have to create, and oh gee, let me dive over here and look at ads for 15 minutes that then becomes 2 hours, or publish a book or change a blurb, and oh my god, and all of a sudden 6 hours have gone by and you're tired as hell, and now you're supposed to create. So this is what will burn people out, because so many indies, you're a solo show, but you have to pace yourself. That's I will do things and I have to check out so I can go write for, if I write for 2 hours uninterrupted, I can get 2,500 words, and that's a great day. 2 hours is all I need, but
Shut up, man.
I have so much going on. Like the indie grants, I think we're up to what, $17,400
How many
distributed
have
on
you given
indie
out?
grants.
How many have you given out?
87. We've given out 87, and there was 13 this morning. 13
Yeah.
grants, and that's I'm like, hey, let me take care of this. It'll be 5 minutes. Well, it was 35 minutes later, and and I didn't get any words. But these are folks who utilities might get turned off. Somebody's eaten half. They cut their rations in half because they couldn't afford to eat as much as they wanted to. This is 21st century, and people are going hungry, and we just can't abide by that. So the business acumen for those folks in 20 books to 50K, well done. A way to stay true and throw a few nickels into the fund that we.
Oh, Carl, you made my keep on going, people.
No, don't
keep on going. Slow down with that 2,500 words, Bukowski.
But people donating money and being able to then support their fellow authors. So 20 books to indie 50K. I think we're $41,000 distributed this year from donations.
That's amazing, and that's all on you and everyone else providing the money. But
yeah.
So related also to burnout. So the question is really, it's desire is one of them, because you can have the energy but no desire, right? My desire, I'm full of energy, I'm going to go play video games. Well, that's not really using that desire in a good way. So you're mentally, to your point earlier about there being three aspects of a person, you're mentally not checked in. So you need to understand, why am I mentally not checked in? It could be you're having to do something either for the company, your little company, you don't want to do, and so you procrastinate, and that affects everything. That's where we keep harping on this. Is there a way for you to either acquire a VA, get somebody to help you, find a partner? If you realize, I'm not above, which was exactly what I did. I'm not above finding someone who is going to be able to handle a recognizably large chunk of LMBPN on my behalf, and I don't have to be the guy who does everything. I'm really not geared to not being the guy who does everything.
Well, and you were doing all the payments too, which was a huge thing. And then you were able to work with an accounting firm to then manage that aspect of it, which was a huge relief for you, yes, especially when you were traveling.
Yeah, so right, because one of the things I learned as being an outsourced person myself, a freelancer, back in the day, was I really appreciated any company that would pay me quickly. Because there's obviously, I'm doing freelancing for a reason, in the evenings after my main job, because my family needed it. And so it was always on my mind. So LMBPN pays quickly. So I've paid people when we had Wi-Fi flying to a foreign country, just to try to get that done. And so I'm in the middle of a long haul, and somebody, Steve is here in America, and as soon as he gets it, he would put it on Slack. Slack gives me as soon as I have Wi-Fi, and then I would start the process. And so we just recently, we had the CPA firm for taxes for 3 years, and then they started to do billing, but it became evident they need everything. And so now they do everything. And I'm like, all of a sudden, even that 30, 45 minutes, because even paying everybody was probably maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours every month, but it was the emotional toil to be knowing it's coming, you have to prep, it's coming. And all that mental anguish, and then it was done, and they're like, oh, thank God it's over for 3 weeks before you start stressing again.
Well, and then authors as well, because I know some people, if Amazon's delayed, they're used to you paying on like the 31st or the 1st. And then people start to get a little bit antsy because, hey, this is my only source of income. My rent's due, and where's my check? And so then, like you said, emotional turmoil. And Monster Class. Why don't we write in horror genre? I don't read it. I don't like it, so I won't write in it. That's an easy answer.
Well, I mean, you had a monster case file, so technically speaking, the short answer is there's a couple of different reasons. I'm really not a huge horror genre person myself. I give Dan Wilcox so much shit about his horror love, and like he is such a demented individual, and I laugh, and I say that with with glee because I recognize the why, but I'm like, dude, him and David Beers also. David goes so far as to have funny shirts with horror people on it and everything else. I mean, I don't understand that, but I recognize that it's done. But here's an interesting aspect. A long time ago, I had my first time that I had put Death Becomes Her on a free, and we put it up. I had noticed something. For the same amount of books that were given away, I was #1 in horror, #4 in sci-fi, and #7 in urban fantasy. And it's the same book, and it's because it it crosses all three genres. And so what that told me is that it's very easy for the same amount of sales to be #1, which means it's a weak market. Science fiction was the second weakest market because it was #4, and urban fantasy was the hardest, or the paranormal, because that was the biggest market.
Yeah.
And so if I was going to go into something, I didn't, and I'm, to Craig's point, not really the most fun. Why that one? You have to love it to go into it and really be good at it, and that's just not me.
Yeah, and that's Mark Leslie Lefebvre is another big horror guy for some ungodly reason.
I know, the nicest guy. I mean, he looks like someone who could be a horror individual. I mean, he could play the part, and he does occasionally. But as he's a big softy, he's just the nicest guy.
He loves that horror, skeletons, and all that creepy stuff.
I don't know, Jeremy. You'd have to start, providing pictures, and then we get HR problems with, could you be the big husky? So we kind of.
I don't think you want to go there. but burnout. I tell you what, I know Michael and I, we talk a lot on the phone, and most of the time, probably 90% of the time, we're not talking about books and publishing, because that's what we do. 16 hours a day, we're doing that. And here's two people. You're like, hey, you guys live and breathe books and publishing. Yes. And to each other, we just have fun and talk about other stuff because there's
we
a
did
limit.
In the beginning. Yeah, we did in the beginning because it was all new to us. Yeah. So for the first 2 to 3 years, it was always about books, always about 20 books. It was always about all of these things. And I think that it's probably the last year and a half, and especially since COVID started, I've noticed this. It's been more about you and me just kind of just like, dude, I just need to not talk. And you and I know each other so well, best friend of mine. And I'm, I can say anything. And usually it's, God bless me. Why did you say that? That's usually
I'm naked under my clothes.
Yeah, exactly. That's how that's pretty benign on what he'll say off camera when you pick up the phone.
Tell Michael that.
I did not need that visual, Martelle.
There's a question: how to overcome procrastination? And this is one that
freaking want more. Yeah. I mean, you don't want it. Obviously, if the procrastination is there, you don't want it more. Right? And let me finish hearing me out. That doesn't mean that you don't want whatever it is, but you haven't found the reason. And this is where I go back to my first time of burnout. You haven't found or justified the reason. Trust me, if your food required you to do this, or you get more and more hunger, that becomes a priority. So work through it and find out on that procrastination, what is it that you're loving more? Because let's World of Warcraft, or Warcrack, as it was commonly called when it came out. That was a software that was built from the beginning to deliver dopamine hits to the brain. It is and was a drug. And so many people had to go cold turkey because they couldn't deal with actually winning, because they are playing a drug. It was more fun. So the procrastination, honestly, is being hidden by the fact that you're addicted to this other thing. You're going to have to get rid of that addiction, because it's not procrastination that's really causing the problem. It's the fact that your brain is like, I'm going to go for that because that's instant gratification.
Yeah, that's it's easy to not do stuff through fear of failure.
Hmm.
They're not going to like this. I'm going to invest all this time and I'm not going to make any money. People aren't going to like it. They're going to give me 1-star reviews. My life's going to suck. I am so results driven that I refuse to accept that. I'll get it done. And if people don't like it, well, I'll adjust and I'll get the next one done better. And I've used this for my whole writing career. And now books turn out pretty well, even books that I don't like or don't think that are going particularly well. People tell me, hey, I like your books. I love this latest book. And that keeps me going. But until you get to that point, how do you get there? Knowing that you're going to get to that point, refusing to fail, refusing to let the perception of failure stop you. And you have to have that result, and you can't sell a book that you haven't written. But it's such a great idea. I'm thinking about it. Then you don't know where your story's going. Think about where your story's going and get it down. And that's I actually don't even start a story until I know how it's going to end. I try to write the first chapter. I write the first chapter, and then I write the last chapter, so I know. And then I sandwich everything else in between with side plots gauged to achieve a certain word count length. My last 3 books have come within 100 words of 72,000 words. So I guess that's my new norm, is 72,000 words. I hit right there. and it's just, I know where it's going to go. I know where it's going to end. And I just build it up to that point and then taper it down and end like I need to. But if you're just saying, hey, I've got a great idea for a scene, you need to have a great idea for a book.
Right. And so, Masterclass, do you believe in the 90-minute time to get into zone right? I personally believe that most writers have their own ways to get into anything. I don't need that. I could probably, hang up from talking with Craig, or even not hang up, and choose some object on.
Hang on, that was this morning. It's like he asked me a question. I'm like, oh, hey, here, I think here's what I did, and he's like, oh, hang on, and well, without the hang on, he just starts typing.
So I think that it's actually per person. So I don't want to, stipulate. And I believe that some people might go, you don't need 90 minutes. Well, hold on, maybe they do. I don't know that for sure. I don't know you personally, but I don't need it.
Here's what I saw from May Sage. She got some advice, and this morning she shared that somebody said to help your focus, stare at a candle burning for 5 minutes, and 5 whole minutes. Just stare at a candle burning. And she said when she finishes, she's got really sharp focus. She's able to write because she can get right into her book. And this is like a meditation and a focus training exercise. I like it. I personally don't need it either. As soon as I get off the phone with Michael, I forget that I was ever on the phone with Michael, and I just start writing. And but I've got the stories because I'm so driven. It's like, I got to get these words. So I might jam 5 minutes. And actually, I looked at my story right before I brought Michael on, and I had like 2 minutes. I'm like, let me look at it so I can be in the right mindset whenever we get off, that I can get back into it and get those words and maybe reach my goal by noon. And then every word past noon is bonus words. So it's what do you want to accomplish? How do you need to get there? And what are your priorities? Because if you can prioritize not writing, then you need to prioritize writing, because then it's authoring. Authoring is not always fun and easy.
Right. And that's what so many people is like, oh, you're a writer. You don't do anything all day. Well, not usually if you're an indie successful writer. So there's a lot to say about that. And I think that, everybody's motivation is generated in a little bit different ways. At one point, it was all income, which is what the Facebook user is talking here. I went from 97 cents on day 3, and I made $1.97 day 4. And at some point, I was making $4.76, and I was like, "Look at this, man!
I'm doubling it every day,
doubling it." And it has nothing to do with Dublin.
Or burnouts. I guess I learned right up front that we're not battling burnouts.
Yes, no, not burnouts themselves. And then for Lisa, my personal answer to your question is I got good at understanding that when I couldn't drive myself, which was abnormal for my personality, that was what was going on. The harder it was for me to get started, the more I was having issues because I knew how much I wanted to accomplish something and had for a while. But a lot of people don't realize, or perhaps never knew, I didn't really get started until I was 47 in this area. So I had plenty of life experience under the belt, and driving myself and not being that early 20 something Mike. I have no idea what that Mike would have done if he had this. God only knows. So everyone's in a different portion of their life as well. I admire some of the individuals who are 60, 70 years old, and they're doing this and they have it down. I mean, they skip a lot of the problems I had at 47, 48, because they're like, they're another 20 years of experience under their belt. And so it is different for everybody, but I would just take a look at it and so start pacing yourself. If you know that you do this and burn out, do this and burn out, I suggest don't do this the same way. If you're doing it the same, the end result, you're going to burn out. So tweak it, tweak your process, make yourself do something a little different. I was put on my wife tried multiple times through the years, second year, third year, fourth year, 2 and 3, and she would be like, "You're going to take Sundays off." Yes, absolutely, and then go straight to my office and work. So I was paying lip service to any of that. Along year 4, for some reason, I felt like the company was in a decent enough shape that I could take some Sundays off, and that was a problem I found out because I took Sundays off, and Monday I hated. So all of a sudden now I'm hating Mondays, which is indicative of hating your job, at least in my mind. And so I kind of fell back into Sundays, and that part went away. But then I realized I actually do need some time off. And so it took me a good 6 months, I think, to start being able to balance my life, because I had been for 3.5 years working every single day of every single month or week of month of year for 3.5 years, pretty much.
Yeah, it was a slog, and it became a slog. And so how do you recognize burnout early? It's when you stop having fun at what you're doing. And you can recognize that some things aren't fun, like hiring a cover designer and dealing back and forth with edits or marketing, the whole advertising and setting up promotions, that whole thing. Yeah, it can be a pain, but it's when the whole process just kind of tumbles and you don't want to do it anymore, that you have to return to your core competency. And for me, that was writing. As long as I get to write, if I go 2 or 3 days where I don't write anything, then I really get antsy. And it's like, whatever's going on, I'm stopping it. I'm going to write. And then we'll get back to handling those other administrivia details to keep the business going, because it's a business and you're the man. You have to make things happen. So,
or woman.
Yeah. Everybody's the man.
So just to clarify, and I'm not picking on Facebook user who talks about this here at one of the latest comments, but I like to preface almost everything with hashtag probably. You can always find, and I have yet to find this to be not true, you can always find an example that takes someone's wisdom, my own wisdom or experience or anyone else's, they weren't successful doing it the exact opposite of me. So you have individuals who've written one book with no more content, and they have found what fame and prestige, and incredibly rare, off the bell curve, off to the right or left. But just as a note in general, I do try to preface everything to say, hey, this is my experience. This is my subjective opinion. Might not be true for you, than for what it's worth.
Working within yourself is the key to not burning out. You have to know, because nobody will be able to tell you that, hey, this is a self-destructive behavior, because people could have looked at me and said, oh my God, you can't work 16 hours a day for 3.5 years straight. And Michael, you can't work like that. Well, yeah, you can. We both have heart issues, and we're
yeah, that's a really good point to bring up. And that is, neither one of us have gotten out of this without physical issues.
Yeah.
Let's be kind of clear on that. And obviously we're still here. Obviously we had things that were before we started this. So it's not like they were only caused because of what we did, but
yeah. This is how we've lived our whole lives. And it does take a toll on you over time. I'm 58, and yeah, I got a bad heart, I got bad lungs, and I need to keep in shape. So I did actually start doing sit-ups again this morning. So tighten those abs a little bit, make my stomach less bulgy. It's a start. It's a start. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm okay looking at myself in this direction, but when I go sideways and I see my neck goes, like a triangle, that's
the same here, man. Straight on, we're okay. Straight on. Let's keep it straight on.
Yeah, really. Otherwise, throw your neck there.
Burning. This is, as you're building your business, you're seeing more and more opportunity, and this is where you have to give yourself permission to say no. Sometimes good deals are just huge time sinks, and time is the one thing that will burn you more than anything, because all of a sudden you got 24 hours of work to do and only one day to do it, and that will put you 6 feet under. You don't want that.
Yeah.
So anytime I gave Michael a timeline, it was actually, if I thought I could write the book in 3 weeks, I would tell him 6 weeks. And I would tell myself 6 weeks. And this year, I only had 4 to 6 books that I wanted to write. I've written a lot more, so an off year.
I was gonna say, you've done some horrible things. You told me 3 months, 5 months ago, whenever. You're like, you know what? I've only got one more book I'm going to write. That's it. I got one more book that's due before the end of the year. And like 4 books later, you were horrible with your expectations. Yeah. You sandbagger, you big husky sandbagger.
I might have sandbagged, but it's just the stories and the reception of those stories were my addiction. It's like, hey, let me get another one of those out, like Judge, Jury, and Executioner. People jonesing for the next Rivka story. So hell yeah, never turns.
You stop coming up with this horribly humorous shit, people.
We're battling burnout here.
Burnout. This is supposed to be. It is. I mean, it is incredibly relevant. A lot of us have suffered. I'm certainly not going to say everybody have gone through it. The way that I've gone through it, I do recognize that it is something you can get yourself through. It's a pain in the ass. It's painful. It's going uphill, dragging a 100-pound block with you, but it can be done. Don't believe the people who are like, you just have to wait it through. No, you don't. Yeah. It's an attitude. Trust me. If someone came up behind you with a burning bush, you'd type. Hired brand that's like, hey, if I don't get 100 words an hour, I'm going to put this in your back. You type. Therefore, it's mental.
Well, and the triumvirate is emotional health, financial health, and physical health, because you can't do the financial and the emotional if you're not physically healthy. So take care of yourself. That giving yourself self-help, self-care, those kinds of things matter before you do anything else, because you can't support your family if you're down hard because you're broken. So the financial part, that only comes from the other two, because if you're not emotionally well and you're physically unhealthy, guess what? You're not going to be making any money, or probably, #probably. And people are going to recognize that as their challenge. I have to get these words. I have to do this. So I'm not going to work out today. And all of a sudden, 4 months later, you haven't worked out and you look like us. I mean, me. Don't turn sideways.
That's the one. Yeah. # don't turn sideways. Never turn sideways. I love that. Bulgy. # bulgy.
Let's not talk bulgy.
I'm actually down from Thanksgiving of last year. I'm down about 6 pounds. Okay. But which has been fairly consistent now for 9 months. So I've yet to get down. But the weight for my own health things, my doctor has basically told me, dude, you could get off this medicine if you would just lose weight. I got the news for yesterday from another individual who just basically said the same thing. You're fine. Lose weight, fucker.
You're fine at 190 pounds.
Yeah.
Awesome.
180.
You'd be a superstar.
Yeah.
One thing that we've been able to benefit from, and we've brought to the 20 Books conventions, is the experience from those people who have lived it, like Kevin J. Anderson, Dean Wesley Smith, Chris Rush, those people who have been in the business so long, Todd McCaffrey, and there's so many others that have been writing for 30 years, and simply asking them, how do you deal with the ups and downs? Because Kevin will tell you, I've failed more times than most people succeed because all the trends, hey, I'm making it, and all of a sudden I didn't sell a book for a year.
No,
And
actually, that would be appropriate to say he had to succeed more times than people have failed, because it's easy to fail.
yeah, but the ups and downs. He said he had to reinvent himself 3 different times
Yeah.
during his career. And people just think, hey, man, 23 million books sold, New York Times, all this good stuff. Yeah. And every time where there was a downtrend, it's like, what am I going to do? So talking to people like that is always a huge benefit to getting in the right mind frame to keep moving forward, because your situation is not unique in that no one has ever this has never happened to anybody before, because it has. And how do you get past that into the next step where you're back doing what you need to do for your business?
Yeah. Rebecca Moesta, whose husband is Kevin J. Anderson, it's more important to say it that way than the opposite. But if you ever get a chance to talk with her, she's a wise woman. A lot of things, because she's also an author in his New York Times and everything else. And, she has had some challenging times in her own life. But so if you ever get a chance to talk to the two of them, they're both very giving individuals and will share so much knowledge with you. And then I was going to ask you about this a little bit back. Do you have or have plans for individuals to speak to the physical health at 20 Books Bali's?
At 20 Books Vegas 2021?
Yes.
Yes. We were going to have a couple different people. We have some health conscious folks who write books in it who are coming. And so, yes, at least 2, maybe 3 sessions on physical well-being, and at least 1 or 2 sessions on emotional well-being, because I think the emotional state is even more critical for authors, especially indies, because you're sitting home alone and you're telling yourself all these evil stories and polluting your own mind. And how do you protect yourself, insulate yourself from that, and continue to move forward in a positive way?
Yeah. So, all right. And that's relevant, because it doesn't matter if you make it to Vegas or not. A lot of this is going to be live streamed. Therefore, you're going to be able to see it. Yeah. So just be aware of that in case you're going to be wherever you're at. And then the 20 years to make an overnight success, that's easily arguable, because there's plenty of YouTube overnight successes. I went from 0 to 100,000 a month in a year. So it doesn't have to be. It's just understood that the better way to think about it mentally is the turtle gets the race, which is exactly what you're saying. The 20 years, don't stress yourself. If it happens faster, fantastic. But why stress yourself? You're not telling yourself that if it takes 20 years, it takes 20 years, that it will take 20 years. It's merely allowing yourself the opportunity not to just put stress on yourself, because we are usually our worst person, and it's all mental.
And unless you've committed to everybody else, but then it still comes back to you. If you haven't told anybody no, and you've committed to all these projects, and all of a sudden you're buried, it still comes back to you. You've got to say no sometimes. You have to know what you are capable of doing.
It feels like in the author, certainly our author community, that there are more personalities than the norm who are giving. That's a given. That's one of the reasons there are 2 rules, and one of them is don't market anything. The reason I put that rule is because there are too many people who need to get their next meal who would still buy a 99-cent book to help somebody else out. I didn't want that stress or pressure in the group, therefore that rule. Having said that, man, you pick it up, Craig. I'm going to have to toss this one. I lost my train of thought.
I don't know where you were going
with that.
I don't know where you were going either. But it's such a giving nature that people will try to help others out, even if it means that they have to sacrifice. So
So your comment about saying no, it took me a long time to not feel guilty to say no. Yeah. And one of the most powerful words for your success, and I guess that's the way maybe we need to phrase it somebody. One of the most powerful words for your success and your ability to help others is to learn how to say no, for those who, like me, have a hard time doing it. Yeah. Now I have individuals who say no for me, so it never gets to me in the first place.
Yeah, I have also hired people to say no. I have the professional nopesters that they're paid to say no. Oh, here, you need to talk to my assistant. And the only answer they have is no. They cannot make any deals. So it's way cool. I'm sure you know who she is. I'll tell you later. But I have a professional nopester.
Well, I know it's not Elaine, so.
Yep.
Who's on here at the moment, so I'm just waiting to see what she replies with.
And that's like Carl said, lines with your vision. Understand your business and keep your business going in the right direction. Sometimes a co-authoring project or a short story in an anthology is something you do want to do because this is the good exposure. You'll get some royalties, and oh, by the way, you're in this anthology with some high-end authors. Now you have to look what's best for my business as opposed to, oh, I don't want to disappoint my friend by not contributing a short story to this anthology that doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere, as opposed to one that we know is going to power forward. You have to make the best decision for your business. Sometimes you disappoint people, but don't disappoint yourself and what you're doing.
Thank you, everybody, because some of these jokes that are going back and forth does make a relatively depressing subject matter. It's important. We recognize that, but man, we've spoken on this at least 3 times over the years, minimum. It is challenging. It is all of those things, and you can get through it if you're in it right now. Take a step back. There's probably a ton of books on how to deal with really the underlying cause. We call it burnout, but the reality is there's probably 6 other words that are more commonly used that you can find out about it. So the opportunity is there. The knowledge is there. Your willingness is obviously would be there because you're researching into it and you want to get past it. And just recognize that not everything has to do with the fact that you work too much. It could be an external third-party thing that all of a sudden has overwhelmed you. It's listening to your body. It's listening to your mind. It's understanding, whatever. You're not going to get a favorite parent passed away. You're not going to get past that in a couple of days and go, well, I got burnout. No, you don't. A loved one is going to take you months, potentially. It could affect you 3 months from now, but it didn't affect you the first month.
Yeah. It's clinical depression is something completely different. That's not burnout. You need professional help. Make sure you get what help you need. We can't address that. That's not in our purview. I mean, we're not trying to be gurus of stuff that other professionals handle. Not everybody's opinion is equal. So some of you want a better opinion. But burnout
a second opinion.
Yes, a real opinion. The real burnout is just, hey, I don't feel like doing it today, and then that day becomes tomorrow, and the next day, and it's like you got to find out why and where do you want to go, where do you want to take your business, how are you driving your boat?
Yeah, it's legitimate though.
Yeah,
no one. Yeah. I don't think we've ever said anything other than the feelings are legitimate. So how do we deal with them? And going from that, and it's interesting that the end of Facebook user talks about the struggles that they're heavily encouraged by feedback engagement. One of the premier things we're saying is understand what drives you. So if this particular emotional state drives you, first, kudos to knowing that. That's fantastic. If your product's the successful, I just merged 2 of them, but my books aren't selling well enough to really feel that engaged. A couple of different ways to handle this. If you're on Facebook, drive your fans to your Facebook page and just put stuff there. Just, these are my words. Here's my stuff. Eventually enough people will start doing it, but here's the gotcha. It's little dopamine hits. Guess where you're going to be, and you're not going to be writing. If you get somebody if you crack a joke on Facebook and people are laughing and you're feeling fantastic, you won't go back to your book because your book is still not that much fun all the time. The people who write a book and who just say, I just love writing and that's the only thing I want to do. I'm like, man, you are one lucky son of a bitch. Because I love to help create stories, but I am not keen on writing 80,000 words, right? That's not my joy.
Understand what drives you. And this is internal. Nobody can tell you that. And if you need external motivation, writing is going to be hard because it takes internal motivation to write that next scene, to shape the next scene, and do the stuff that you have to do to write a book. And you're not going to get external motivation while you're writing a book.
Oh,
That
by
has,
the way,
yeah,
if
yeah,
if you want horrible external motivation, be a successful author.
yeah.
There you go. You are going to get all the negative attitude and people giving you shit because you have success in your personal life, your professional life. It's, just get accustomed to knowing where to shut people out. It's one of the reasons you almost never find me on social anymore. I don't, it's just a minefield of problems for me to do it. The fans, I can stay there. That's mostly okay, but even some of the fans are very pushy in their opinions. Well, you did this wrong. This character XYZ. And I'm like, do I want to deal with that? Really?
Those are the worst. but they happen. Nora Roberts
Yeah.
just recently got in a Twitter feud with somebody who was bitching about it'll be another year for the next book. This one was so great. God, you have to hurry up. How can you take a positive reinforcement of I loved your book to you suck? But they
Yeah.
did it in the speed of light. And Nora Roberts, she weighed in, of course, in her eloquent way and shut the person down and explained, here's the process. But still, what kind of emotional toll does that take? That people seem like they're complaining at you and bitching at you when it's like, hey, you love my book. It was a good thing. Next one will be a year. All right, relax. It'll come.
Yeah. But you do, but as a reader, as a reader first, you know that feeling. You want that high. That book that they read produced such an powerful and impactful dopamine high. They crave the next one, and they
Yeah,
didn't know how to shut their mouth up.
yeah, yeah.
It came out, and so I
And
get it.
yeah, and that's as an author, you accept the praise, you ignore the complaints, and be consistent. Under promise and over deliver. So 12 months from now might be 11 months from now, or it's a book that's a little bit longer than what people expect. Under promise and over deliver. That is one of your best ways, but make sure you don't under deliver. Like, hey, it'll be a year to the next book, and it's actually 3 years or 10
Yeah,
years. Like
not
authors
you,
that we know. Yeah, yeah. Don't do
J.R.R.
that, and then vilify your fans for demanding that book that you promised them.
Yeah, really.
So it's important to be consistent, and this is your brand. If you say you can do a book in a month, tell your fans 2 months, and then over deliver. Hey, it's ready in a month. There you go. Everybody be happy.
Yeah. So a couple of different things off of what was over here. 90% of my reviews can't wait for the next one. It makes me want to split my wrists. If you prefer writing amongst yourself, that you'll deal with that however you need to. I actually just used it to build a company and said, okay, here's this other person. Or in the beginning, when I didn't have more people writing with me, which took a year, I would point them to some people I liked. Hey, over here, if I can't supply them the books, I would start, and you are in a fantastic opportunity to first, you go, okay, these people like me, who's like me that I like, let me reach out to them and say, hey, I'm willing to point fans in your direction. They will come over and read your stuff. Is this something that you can reciprocate and point them into mine? And so those new fans would read some of your backlist. Use that opportunity. So that's if you're going to stay solo, predominantly solo. If you're going to build a company, then like I did, we had fans wanting stories, Craig's area, post-apocalyptic. I told him, I'm never going to write this. I don't like it. And I know that it's a minefield if you don't know what you're talking about. And I don't. And you do.
I
So,
did that one. That series did okay for us.
yeah. Craig's the first author, as far as I'm aware, that I can remember. Craig is the first author that I searched out to go, would you write this with me, please, sir?
September of 2016, I got that email,
Big
and
Husky.
December we had the book, and by December of the next year we had 12 books published in that series, and
Yeah.
a huge income. So it worked well. But the working within your expectations, this is important. You have to manage your readers' expectations, and that is where you're going to control your brand, and you can be consistent. Hey, I said 2 months for the book. Relax. It's going to be 2 months, but I'm going to give you a good book. Just always promise your reader. And what Michael said about sharing, I send a newsletter every Monday. I don't publish a book every Monday. I send a
You will
newsletter
be
every
soon.
Monday. And if I have a promotion going on one of my backlists, I'll put that. That's the lead. But then I'll include one or two, and I've got through January, I have swaps all set up from other folks who are in my genre at the level of my stuff. So I give my fans a week's worth of reading each Monday. Oh, hey, here you go. Here's a free book. Here's a 99-cent book. This will get you through the week. These are in KU if you're Kindle Unlimited, and we'll see you next week. So it's like Michael said, readers can read far more than you can write. You keep them on the hook by keeping them interested, and when you do have something new, you want them to come back to you. So newsletter list, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yes, the listening Lisa, awesome. Conan the Barbarian. I told. When did I tell you about the Conan thing, Craig?
That was yesterday.
Was that yesterday? Okay, so when I was younger, for me at that time in my life, having a 50-story building with the company's name emblazoned at the top of the building was the pinnacle of success. Obviously, since then, I've learned that was a bad idea. And so when I built this company, we built ours totally where everybody worked from home. We had no company. There was never a plan to own an LMBPN building. So we happened to be okay for COVID. But what happened September of this year, I happened to go looking and I found that Conan, specifically the Conan IP, the Conan copyright, and all of that stuff was sold for $7 million to another company years ago. I don't know if it's 10 or 20 or whatever many years ago. And I'm like, okay, so the estate doesn't own it. An entity does. How much money would I have to make to go buy that company out and own Conan stuff? And now that is my new blazon. LMBPN owns the rights to Conan. I don't know if that could actually happen, but man, it is something for me to dream.
It's pretty cool to think about, because then you know what? If we want to write Conan books, we're going to write some goddamn Conan books.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like, I'm pretty sure I can figure out a way to get more Conan written. So since I couldn't, I had already been building my own sword and sorcery book series, and it's weird because Craig and I separately started sword and sorcery books, and we finally, admitted to each other, oh, by the way, you're getting into it? No, I'm getting into it.
You were first, so I'm going to target all your shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you bastard. You'd better put a link to my book in the back of yours. They come out slower.
No, but then I brought on a couple different authors. So, yeah, I know. I told you I'm not going to do the publisher thing, but I am.
I know. I haven't bothered you. I appreciate you releasing that out of you. You fucking liar.
So yeah, I brought on two guys.
I don't believe Craig until time tells me what actually happened, because whatever he says isn't necessarily true. And great, I appreciate the person commenting the negative feedback. I meant to say this a while ago. My wife told me on my 5th book, because I got so messed up, I thought it was an obligation that I should read all of the negative reviews. I thought in my mind it was an obligation that I had to do it, and I wouldn't do it. I procrastinated. It was causing me problems. And she's like, are you going to change anything? And I go, probably not. She goes, then why would you undertake the emotional turmoil of reading it? And I do. Some people, Craig was an example, who can read it and it won't bother him, but personality wise, it will emotionally cause me to lose hours. So I do not read anything less than 5 stars. I pay attention to the ratio. I know if it's 81% 5-star or 62% 5-star. I know that, but I don't read them.
Yeah. I look at that ratio almost every day, especially with newer volumes. Looking for, I'm actually looking for 75% 5-star or more, and I will read all the reviews just to see where it is.
Oh, hashtag Husky Lives.
Husky Lives for living and makes good money at it. Fucking A. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been hilarious. All
right. So
we're good.
battling burnout. Here we are, looking like hell. Your hair's all dicked up, Michael. Now it started off great, but now it's all good up. What's a dick for?
Crap. I don't even know which way it's going. I can't tell because you had me change, because I had my image looking like I expected it, but you pointed out the fact that no one could read it, and I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. So but now I can't tell what the hell.
Now you can't do anything else because
can't do anything because I can't. Yeah, you just damn it. Oh God, that's worse. You know what? Fuck this.
I'm shaving it, man. I'm shaving mine. I haven't gotten to it yet, but there you go.
This will probably be the picture that frickin' Go Live
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
It's gonna be this
All
picture. Like,
blacks.
yeah, there.
LMBPN, all blacks. There you go. You and New Zealand, head to head. All right.
Absolutely.
Battling burnout. Hopefully, we answered people's questions today and talked about some things and methodologies to get yourself in the right headspace to deal with your burnout before it happens, so it doesn't happen. And then recognizing that once you're there, there's things you need to do to get out of it. And then sometimes it's not burnout; it's other crushing issues like loss of a loved one,
Mhm.
and getting past that to the point where then you can be creative as well as manage your business. So it's important to look at yourself. You have to look internally. I'm trying to be serious here.
I know you are, but Elaine was over there. Oh, it will be the picture. Trust me. I'm like, ah, damn it.
Oh my God. but, but getting yourself back into where you're creative and running your business, because nobody will run your business but you. That we're indies. That's what we do. So if you're not running it, then what's happening? And you've already, if you've written one book, you have already invested a significant amount of your emotional well-being and your time in creating that book. Don't let it die. Let it keep having legs and give it life. Keep breathing life into it with another book.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. You
Take
guys
care,
have a
everyone.
great day, and we'll catch you again.